Hello my lovely people of the crafting universe. Today I'm showing you an art journal page using transparent paper or vellum paper. At the end of this video you will see a link to another video where I show you how to make your own transparent paper, and I'm specially designed this art journal page to showcase the handmade vellum. I'm working in a spiral bound art journal, and I have covered this page in a thin layer of white gesso. I use gesso because I'm going over it with ordinary inks, and if I didn't have the gesso down, the inks would sink into the paper, soak into the paper, and I would need a lot of ink to cover the page. So I chose 4 different shades of ink, and I tried to find the brightest inks I have. I chose a yellow, a green, a blue, and a red shade. Here you see that I have chosen a blue which is very close into color to the green ink, so I'm trying to find some other blue. Oh, this is much better. And I'm using a brush and just putting on some spots, some random spots of ink. I'm not trying to blend at all. This is going to be a background, and its job is to provide spots of color that shine through the transparent vellum paper. So blending is not necessary at all. And the last color left is red. I'm getting even more brave when I'm going straight onto the paper with the ink cube, just to get more color on the paper. And then I decided that the colors are not as bright as I want them to be, so I'm taking some ink straight from the bottles, and I'm putting on some little drops of green, blue, yellow and red ink onto the paper. It doesn't matter that the color doesn't match exactly the color of the ink cubes. Again, it's going to be a background. And this time, instead of brush, I'm using a tiny piece of sponge. Ooh, see, this is much better. The colors are much brighter. So instead of a brush, I'm using a piece of sponge to spread out the ink. And I'm checking with my vellum paper if the color can be seen through it enough. So I'm happy with how it looks, so I can proceed with starting the second layer. So the second layer will be the transparent paper or the handmade vellum paper, and I'm tearing some smaller pieces of it. I'm happy with the placement of the papers. So it's time to start to glue them down, and I'm using soft gel medium to glue down the pieces of vellum. At the beginning, the vellum loses a little bit of its transparency because of the gel, but as the gel dries, it becomes transparent, and with it, the transparency of the vellum returns as well. And I have printed a vintage image of a lady on an ordinary 80-gram printer paper, cut it out and glued to the page using the same gel medium. And I also went over the lady with the gel medium to enable me later to add other layers which would spread more easily. And then I realized that now I think that the background is too bright and I wanted to tone it down, and I remember that I have this amazing stencil from Clarity. It looks a little bit like fields disappearing in the distance, and since the composition of my art journal page reminded me of Mona Lisa. Don't laugh, I'm not saying that I am Leonardo da Vinci, but I've decided that yes, I could do the background which reminds a little bit of fields, so I was very happy to use this stencil. And I'm using a white gesso to put on a very light, very thin layer of white through the stencil in the background of the lady. Yeah, much better. And now I'm using my favorite black charcoal pencil to go around the image. I'm putting a line of charcoal around the image and then smudging it using my finger. This helps to ground the image, to help it sit better into the overall picture. To mark the border of my page, I chose a dark gray ink, and I'm using a brush to go around the page. I'm letting more ink sit on the very edge and fading it out towards the center of the page. And to mark the edge of the page even more, I took the black acrylic marker and just went around the page drawing a couple of lines. And since my art journal is made of 300-gram watercolor paper, each page is quite thick, which means that it has a white edge, so this marker helps also to color in the thick white edge of the page, and it doesn't stand out. And I'm not too bothered about the top of the page where the spirals are, because this is spiral bound journal, so there is no point trying to hide it. And the last stage is adding a sentiment, and I chose a stamp from Gummiapan, and I really like their stamps because although they are meant for the cards, their stamps are not very generic. They always have some thought put into the stamp, so they lend themselves beautifully also to art journal pages. And this stamp says, "With you, I am home." I really like the stamp and I use it quite often in my art journals. And the same way I went around the little sentiment paper with a black charcoal pen. And the last thing I'm adding on the journal is some writing around the edge of it with white acrylic pen. I'm just writing a couple of sentences that come into my mind regarding home, regarding the nice feeling of being home, the warmth that you feel at home. So this is the art journal page with You I Am Home, which featured the handmade transparent paper. And if you liked it, please push the subscribe button and leave a comment what you liked about the page. And I will also leave a link here for the video where I show how to make the transparent paper at home.